Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Deemer and welcome back to our Java programming tutorial series. Today we will be making our second project, a Madlibs game. The pace will be like the last project, but I will explain how each line works. Without further ado, let's get started. I have 3 goals for this project. For goal number 1, I want to set up the tracking system. For example, I want to track the input that the people put in. I want to be able to track if it's a noun, a verb, or an adjective. And then next, the second goal is to read the user input. So I want to be able to read when someone puts in a noun, a verb, an adjective. And then the third goal is to store the final result within a file. Okay, let's go ahead and build the project. So, like I said, I'm going to be making this fairly quickly. You guys should be able to follow along though. So I'm gonna make a package that is called Madlibs under my me.joshua. And then the name is just going to be Madlib type. I'm gonna want certain types of Madlibs. So let's zoom in a little bit. Now I'm going to add a private final string type. I don't want the type of this to change. Then I'm going to add a private Madlib type constructor, taking in a string type, and then of course setting the final to the constructor's type. Next up, I'm going to want to say public string get type name and return the type. So what this is going to do is it's going to make a getter for our type. Now up top, I'm going to want to make all the different types. Since this constructor is private, it can only be used in this class. I could use this to make a builder, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to say public static final Madlib type noun equals a new Madlib type, and I'm gonna put noun in here. Okay, I'm going to do this for verb, place, name, adjective, adverb, pronoun, animal, event, and thing. Okay, just to cover all our bases. So verb, place, name, adjective, adverb. I'm being very careful to use everything we've learned so far. I could do this in a better way, as always. There's always a better way or a different way to do things in programming. It's up to your own programming style, but I want to make sure that I'm doing this all from what we've learned. Pronoun, animal, event, and thing. Okay, so this that's getting stored here, I want to be able to ask inputs from users, such as please enter your blank. And so please enter your noun, or please enter your adjective. Something along those lines. Okay? So this will end our Madlib type class. I will come back to it in the future, but let's make another class. We're going to call it the Madlib item. Okay, so for the Madlib item, I'm going to contain a Madlib type as a field. And then I'm going to have a value as a field. Those are the 2 Madlib item fields that I want. So Madlib item is going to be part of the story, okay? And the story will have a type, so is this a noun, an adjective, etc. And then the value that the person inputs. So let's have public Madlib item Madlib type. So the first thing I want to know is if there is, or what the type is. So I'm going to say this dot type equals type. However, when the Madlib item is created, I don't want it to have a value right off the bat. So next up, I'm going to add a setter. So public void set value to string value. Then say this.value equals value. Just something simple like that. And we can say public madlib type get type. Return type. Public string get value. And then return value. So I have my getters here, I have a setter here, and I've got my constructor. This is what I'm going to leave the Madlib item at for now. Next up, I'm going to make another class called Madlib. So this is where the actual meat is. We've got the preparations all set for it. Now we've got the meat to go. So private final, I'm going to want a name for the Madlib. I'm going to want to contain an array of texts, and I'm going to want to contain the Madlib items that we just made. Okay, so the Madlib should have a name. It should have the an array of text. So each new item in the array is going to be a new line on the console. And then an array of items which the person will input, the noun, adjective, etc., with their values. So here I'm going to actually make a private constructor, have it take in all the information. I'm going to actually have it take in a list of strings rather than a array of strings, and I'll show you why in a little bit. So Madlib item, items. Sorry, this is texts. And I will import these. I did Control-Shift-O to import. It's a keyboard shortcut. Now we need to fill in our final variables. So this.name equals name. Now I need to convert the list to an array. So I'm going to say this.text equals a new string of text.size. So we're going to get the size of our list and that's going to be the size of our array. So then I'm going to say this.items equals a new Madlib item, items.size. So do the same thing with this items here. Then I'm going to populate these arrays. So I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than this.text.length, I++, and we're going to say this.text of I is equal to text.get of I. This looks a little confusing. We're basically just cloning the list, okay? So we set the array to be the size of this list, and then we go through however many is in the array, which is the size of the list, and then we populate it. We set the array text of the current iteration to the list text of the current iteration. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the Madlib items. Okay, so now that that's all set, we've got our constructor done. Now let's go ahead and add our getters. So I'm going to say public string get name and return name. I'm going to say public string array get text, return text. Public Madlib item array get items, return items. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is, since this is private, we need to be able to set these immediately. So what I'm actually going to do is add a inner class, a static inner class called builder. If you remember the builder pattern, that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to also have a private final string name, private final, and this time it's going to be a list of strings, and a private final list of Madlib item. Okay, then I'm going to say public builder string name. And then I'm going to say this.name equals name. And then under here, I'll say text equals a new array list. And then I got to import the array list. So I'm going to do Control-Shift-O. And I'll say items is equal to a new array list as well. Come on. Come on. There you go. Now, we're going to want to make sure that they can set this. So I'm going to say public builder. So it's going to return a builder. So add text, string text. So what I can do here is I can say text.add text. So we're adding an item to our list. And then I'm going to return this current instance. And I'll show you why that's helpful in a little bit. So public builder, add item, Madlib type. So I'm going to do items.add a new Madlib item with the type passed in. Then I'm going to return this. Finally, we say public Madlib build, and then we return a new Madlib, the name, text, and items. There should be no problem because our constructor takes in exactly what we just did. One more aspect to the first goal, and then we're done with the first one. So I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to call it My Madlibs. So this is where I'm going to actually have all of the Madlibs that we want to make. So if we say public static final Madlib, and then say first is equal to a new Madlib.builder, then we can name it. So I'll call it the Grand Adventure. I have this prepared ahead of time, so excuse myself since it's gonna go really fast. And I'm gonna add a text here. So this is our first line. And I'm gonna say 1 day. And so here I want a name, right? So how do I go about doing this? I'm gonna actually add curly braces and put 0 here. And I'll show you why in a little bit. So decided to explore the one forest in search of a legendary 2. I'm gonna add, not an item, I'm gonna add text again. And I will say along the way, 0 encountered a 3 who offered a 4 map. Then I'm gonna add one more text, so this is on another line, with excitement 0 followed the map, hoping to discover a hidden 5 exclamation point. Okay, we got our text done. Now let's add items. So I can actually just type Madlib type dot, and it pops up with all of my different things that I can add. So I'm gonna make a name first. I'm actually just going to copy and paste this 6 times. That's 7. Then I'm gonna have an adjective. Up next, I'll have a noun, then an animal, and another adjective, and finally an event. Then we will build it. Okay, so what in the world just happened? Well, firstly, I have this 0 here, which in the future, I'm going to make it so that it retrieves the first item in our array. So when you see 3 here, it's going to retrieve the 4th item in our array. So it'll say 0, which is a name, encountered an animal who offered an animal type, so like a giraffe, an elephant, who offered a 4 map, an adjective map. Okay, so this marks the end of the first goal. Now that the first goal, set up the tracking system, is complete, let's go on to the second goal of reading the user input. So there's 3 different aspects that we need to change in order to start accepting user input. Firstly, I'm gonna go into the Madlib item, and I am going to add a new method which returns a string, and call it getItemByScanner. And I'm going to pass in our scanner here, which, if you remember, our scanner is how we read new lines. So first, I'm going to create a string, make the output equal to null. I'm going to make a do while loop. So while the output equals null, it'll continue looping, and I'll return the output at the very end. Okay? So this should look familiar. So what I'm going to say is system.out.print, just print. I'll say please enter a, and then we're going to get the type dot get type name. Okay? I'm going to add colon to the end. Now this is where things are going to start getting confusing, but if we look at what get type name is, type is the Madlib type that we associate with the item. So when we get the type name, it's going to retrieve one of these. So when we pass in a noun, it's going to say inside of here, please enter a noun. Now there's a problem here actually, and the problem is the word a. A turns into an when a vowel is after it. And so when we take a look at our Madlib type, we do have adjective, adverb, animal, and event, which are all starting with a vowel. So what I'm going to actually add here is a public string get pre-word. Okay, so in here I'm going to add a switch, make it and put in the string type. I'm going to say if the case is adjective, or the case is adverb, or the case is animal, or the case is event. Those are the four, I believe, that are starting with an A. Then we're going to return the word "and" with a space after it. Otherwise, the default will return an A. Okay, so this is get pre-word. So we're going to go into our Madlib item again, and I'm going to remove this. I'm going to say plus type dot get pre-word. So we're getting the pre-word of the type put in. Okay. Next up, we need to take in an input. So string input equals scanner.next line. So we read the next line and then we trim it. Make sure there's no extra spaces on the ends. Then we're going to say if the input's length is greater than 1, so 2 characters or more, then we'll set output equal to input. Otherwise, we'll print out your input was invalid. Oops. Okay, that wraps up this method. So let's go ahead and actually create a new class, make it main, and I'm going to put this inside of the src package. Okay, so in here, I'm going to obviously put in my main method where the entry point is. Come on. And then I'm going to say system.out.println. Just going to say something like welcome to Madlibs. Please follow the prompts below. And I'll say scanner. Scanner, we'll make our scanner here equals a new scanner, system.in. Import it. So we've got our scanner all set up. Now let's go ahead and get our Madlib. So I'm going to say Madlib is equal to my Madlibs.first. Okay, so this is grabbing our first Madlib that was built. Okay, so I'm going to import Madlib because it's in a different package. Then I'm going to say use an enhanced for loop and put Madlib item out of all the Madlibs items. Okay, so this is going to loop through every single item inside of the Madlibs items right here. All right, so now I'm going to say the item, set its value to our current item, get item by scanner, and pass in scanner. This looks a little confusing, so let's break it down a tiny bit. So set value sets the value of our item to the string provided. If we go into main, we say the string provided is the current item's scanner result. So we click here. This is the result of the input that the user places. And we pass in our scanner here. Once we are done going through all the items and they're all filled out, we're done with the scanner. So I can simply say close the scanner. Okay. So now, if I were to run this, I'm pretty sure it's the right one that'll run. It says enter name. Awesome, because that is exactly what should happen inside of the first Madlib. It's asking for a name. Then if I say Joshua, it'll say, please give me an adjective. It says an adjective, which is good. Happy. Then it wants a noun, which is the next one. We'll say ball. An animal, we'll say a hippo. An adjective, scared. An event, coronation. Okay, and then it ends. The project has been terminated. So it does work here. Now let's have it print out the story to us. Okay, so I'll X out of this. So going into Madlib, I'm going to add above get name, public string convert. So this will convert the story for us. So I'm going to actually use the string builder to construct this. Then I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than the length of all the texts. So it's going to go through all the texts here and add it to the builder. I'm going to want my curly braces. So I'm going to say string text equals text of I. Okay, so we've got our text. Now I'm going to say for int j equals 0, j is less than the items.length, j++. So I also want to replace our text with the item associated with the number. So in my Madlibs, we want to replace the 0 with the first item, the 1 with the second item, the 5 with the last item, right? So let's go back into here and we'll say Madlib item is equal to items of j. Okay, so we have a loop inside a loop. So this will run every single time that this runs. So this can be slow, but for now, that's what we'll stick with. So then I'm going to say string to find. So this is what we're trying to find. And we have our curly brace plus j plus other curly brace. So we're trying to find curly brace 0, curly brace 1, because it goes through this loop. Then we say text. So our text up here is equal to text.replace. So we're replacing what we're trying to find with the item's value. Okay? Then underneath our for loop, we're going to append to our builder the text, and we're going to append a second time a character, which is /n. If you don't know, this character, this is one single character, is a new line. Okay? Then, underneath everything, we're going to return the builder to string. Okay, so this will replace what we're trying to find, such as the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the curly braces, and it'll replace it with the value of that same item. And so the value is what was inputted by the scanner. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and go back to main and implement this really quick. All it needs to do is say string story equals madlib.convert. Now our story is stored in our string because it's converted to a string with a string builder. Now let's go ahead and print out. Here's your story. Madlib.getName. So we want to get the name of the Madlib. Print it out. Print line. And then we want to print out our story. So let's go ahead and run this. Say, please enter a name. We'll say Joshua. The adjective, happy. Noun, ball. Animal, hippo. Adjective, scared. And coronation. We run it. It says, here's your story, the grand adventure. One day, Joshua decided to explore the happy forest in search of a legendary ball. Along the way, Joshua encountered a hippo who offered a scared map. With excitement, Joshua followed the map, hoping to discover a hidden coronation. Okay, that completes the second goal. Alright, we have our project reading user input. Now let's finish the project by storing the result to a file. Now we just have one last aspect to our project. So if I make a new class, I'm going to call this File Manager. I just want to manage my files for me. So I'm going to say me.joshua.files for the package. Now we've got our class. So in here, I'm just simply going to say public static string save story. And in parameters, I'm going to say the name of the story and then the story to save. Okay, because it needs to be saved to a different file type. So I'm just going to have the file be a static location. I don't care too much about where it is. I'm going to copy and paste it here. Okay, so in Java, you need to make sure to have 2 slashes when you're trying to do I think that's a /. I always mix them up. But when you do a backslash or whatever this one is, you don't need 2 of them. You need 2 of them here. We'll go more into detail with that in future lessons, but for now, when you're doing the forward or backslash, whichever this one is, make sure there's 2 of them, okay? So now I'm going to try to do something, and I'm going to catch just a normal exception. In this exception, I'm going to say system.error.println. I'll say there was an issue saving the story to file. Below is the error. I'm going to say e.printStackTrace, which is going to print out our error. I'm not going to return anything. It's just going to return null for the string. Then, inside of here, I want to make sure the directory exists. So I'll say file directory equals a new file location. So it's going to try to get this location, and if it doesn't exist, then create the directories for it. So I'll say if not directory dot exists, then directory dot make directories. Then I'm going to say file equals new file. So this is the next portion. The path is going to be the location. The parent is going to be the location. Then I'm going to do name plus .txt. Okay, so the location is the path of it. And then name plus .txt is the file name. Next up, I'm going to say if file.exists, then we're just going to crash the program basically. We're going to say throw new file already exists exception. I'm going to say location plus name plus .txt. So if it already exists, then throw an error. You guys haven't seen the throw keyword yet, but now you have. It is, this is how you throw your own errors. Okay? So now that everything is checked out, I can finally write to the file. So I'm going to say file writer equals a new file writer. There are many ways to do this. This is just one of them. It might not be the best, it might not be the worst, but this is one of the ways you can write to a file. So I'm going to pass in the file I want to write to and whether I want to append to the end. I said no, false, because, which one is it? It would be this one, because I want it to create a new file, not append to an already existing file. Under here, I'm going to say writer.write, and I'm going to put in story. So we're going to write our story into the writer. Then I'm going to flush, and then I'm going to close the writer so that it saves all my data. Then I'm going to return where that file location is. Alright, so our file manager is done. It creates the directory, it creates the file, and writes the story to it. Now, if I go to main, I'm going to say random equals new random. I'm going to say string location is equal to file manager dot save story. Since it's static, I can do this. The name is going to be the madlib.getName plus random.nextInt of 10,000. Then I'm going to pass in the story for the story. Okay, so what this is doing is the name of the file is going to be the Madlibs name plus a random 0 to 99 or 9,999. This way you can store multiples of the same story. Then I'm going to say system.out.println. Your Madlib has been saved to then the location. All right, there should be no issues. Let's go ahead and run this and see how it works. So I'm going to say Joshua. The adjective, I'm going to say, well, I'm just going to do the same thing as before. Happy, ball, hippo, scared, and coronation. If I run this, it says the story, and it said that it was stored as the Grand Adventure 3897. And if I have it pulled up here, you can see that it's right there. If I open it, it has my story. This marks the completion of our second project. Thanks for watching. If you have questions, feel free to comment them below. Next episode, we will continue with our lessons with interfaces and enumerations in Java. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss a video. Bye!